Hi, this is the Real Journey Podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Cole. In this episode, I sit down with Mike Bolen, a local entrepreneur who owns and manages multiple Airbnbs. Fresh out of college with a political science major, Mike found himself traveling the country, going door to door selling furniture packages to chain restaurants. As this was not Mike's passion, he did state this was a great opportunity at a young age to learn skills that are truly invaluable. And well, at one time or another, we may dislike what we do may lead to new opportunities. And as Mike was on the road one month, a seed of a new opportunity was planted as one of the owners of an IHOP franchise, who happened to be not much older than him at the time, shared some of the successes he was having. Well, this got the wheels turning, and Mike took action on this new knowledge and began opening up IHOP restaurant franchises in his local area. And after a few years of having success with the restaurants, Mike sold the franchises along with the real estate and quickly realized the real estate made a huge profit, once again opening the door to new opportunity that Mike took massive action on. I'll let Mike share his journey, but I'll say this. Mike's ability to see and take action on opportunities that came his way allowed him to be a millionaire by the age of 28, and he hasn't looked back since. Mike, I got a tremendous amount of value from our conversation, and I thank you for sharing your story. And without further ado, please enjoy the Real Journey Podcast. Mike, welcome to the Real Journey Podcast.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
So you guys own a bunch of Airbnbs, manage a few Airbnbs.
We do.
How's business with the COVID?
Well, that's a little tough right now. You know, that's an understatement. But yeah, no, it's tough. The business is, we lost a lot of business when the issue started, and we're trying to, get that back online. So yeah, it's a challenge, but business and life is always a challenge, right? That's what makes it fun.
And so you guys were having some issues with Airbnb, like with people canceling and then rescheduling.
Oh yeah, we've had that. I mean, there's always people that run scams, right? And
yeah.
I mean, that's just life. But yeah, we've had that where, people have canceled and then they rebook at a lower rate, and, those types of things happen, but it's, it's typically few and far between, but we do battle with that.
And what was the message that Airbnb sent you? Like, oh, if you want to pay these people, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And of course we get that. I mean, Airbnb is always trying to, Airbnb is about Airbnb, and so, I always tell other hosts that we're similar to Uber drivers,
Okay.
Where Uber really doesn't care too much for their drivers. It's just they're a software company, and Airbnb is the same thing.
Gotcha.
They're just concerned with Airbnb and their stock price and things like that, and how they can, drive up their internal values for their IPO.
Gotcha. So you don't take it personal at all.
No, I mean,
it's business.
It is. It's just business. Yeah. And if you're going to use it, if you don't like it, don't use their platform.
And are you seeing more bookings starting to happen now that things are
very slowly? Yeah,
Okay.
It is coming back a little bit. We're getting some people here locally, and when I say locally, within like a 5-hour radius of San Francisco.
Okay, so not from all over.
Los Angeles, Reno, Bakersfield, Fresno, stuff like that, people coming in, some people from Silicon Valley. We're not seeing any of the travelers coming back yet, but we are seeing people take vacations again, regionally where they can drive.
Gotcha. Okay, that's making so that's good at least.
Yeah. It's not bad.
No, not bad.
Yeah. So it comes back, but what do you do? I mean, this is business. I mean, you lose. Sometimes you're winning, sometimes you're losing, and that's just story of life.
It is a story of life, and so let's take it back. So you grew up in St. Louis?
I did. Born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Midwestern boy.
So how did you get from there to California, and specifically Napa?
I think I started to realize after I graduated from college that, I'm not sure if St. Louis was for me. I started to have those questions, but then I got involved in some businesses there that kept me there for a while. And I opened up a couple IHOP restaurants.
Did you?
Yeah. And I was an IHOP franchisee, and that was really My first indoctrination, if you will, into the real estate business. And so I happened to own the building and the land that my restaurants were on. And I ran those for about 2 or 3 years. And when I sold the restaurants, I'm going to say I probably made about $250,000 when I sold the restaurant, but I also sold the building and the land underneath. And so, let's see, I was 28 years old when I sold my last store. And, that's when I made my first $1 million. And made it off the real estate, off selling the building and the land. And so that's where it really dawned on me, hey, this is, there's something to this real estate thing. And so I pivoted my entire career, my entire story arc, if you will, into, pursuing real estate. And not necessarily as a broker or as a, apartment owner or as a restaurant owner or whatever, just into real estate in general. And, I wasn't smart enough to realize that I needed to specialize right out of the gate. So I tried a little bit of everything.
And so what did you go to college for?
I was a political science major pre-law.
Okay, so you didn't go for business or?
No, I was never good at math. So, I knew that that wasn't going to work for me. So I had to do it in a different way. And that was, I was always fascinated with politics and fascinated with law. And so, I probably, had I have liked school more, I didn't really like school, but had I have liked it or enjoyed school more, I probably would have gone to law school.
Okay.
But ultimately, I just wanted to get out and make money.
So what was your first job out of college?
Right out of college, I went to work at my father's manufacturing plant. And so my father did at the time, doesn't anymore, but he owned a manufacturing plant in St. Louis, Missouri, and they manufactured, restaurant furniture, tables, chairs, bookcases, things like that. Anything that would go inside, like, say, a Marriott hotel or, different restaurant chains. And one of his clients was IHOP restaurants.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the connection. And so I was a traveling salesman for my father's company. I'd fly into, like, say, Dallas, Texas. They'd drop me off for 10 days, and I'd drive around the entire state, go into every IHOP trying to sell them, like a new booth package and chairs and tables. It was a great experience.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So just door knocking, basically.
Yeah.
Showing up
at different IHOPs and talking to the little franchisees that maybe owned 1, 2, or 3 stores and trying to sign them up for a new interior package.
And how old were you at this time?
Let's see. I was 24, 25.
And I would imagine that would be very valuable, not only having to travel to unknown territory, but to have to cold call on business owners.
It was a great experience. I mean, it's one of those things where I think any young person, there's a couple things that any young person should do, but one of them is they should 100% have a sales job.
Yes.
I just think that that's where you can really find and learn about a lot about yourself is, being a successful salesperson, or at least trying to be a successful salesperson.
I would agree. I think it's a
great life experience. If you don't join the military, there's some things you can do, I think, as a young person that, will really give you a great asset, later in life. But, joining the military and, becoming a salesperson are probably, like the top 2, I think, for young people.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And so your first franchise, so you got introduced to these IHOPs.
Yeah, I was traveling salesman. So I happened to be in Chicago, and I called on a gentleman who was the same age as me. I think we were 10 days apart.
No shit.
And we kind of struck up a bit of a friendship because I was in Chicago for like 3 weeks, and I was traveling around, and he was one of the first guys that I called on. And I was just shocked that somebody his age owned an IHOP restaurant. I was like, man, this is incredible. And so we developed a bit of a friendship. I didn't actually end up selling him a package until later, but he's like, I don't know why you're doing the sales thing, man. He's like, you should just own an IHOP. They make so much money and yada, yada. And, so I went back home and, I was thinking about it and all this, and I'm a young guy, and I don't know anything about the restaurant business other than just eating there. And so, but he finally talked me into it. He's actually a great story, at his age. He took a job here's somebody who just knew what he wanted to do. And I don't know, there's not a lot of people out there, I think, at a younger age that really know what they want to do. And if you're blessed to know what you really want to do, then you can have unlimited success in life. And so this guy's his name was Mike Rubin. and he lived in Texas, and it happened to be that the number one franchisee for IHOP lived in Texas. And so he went to work for the guy, learned the business in about a year and a half, and then he went to Chicago, bought his own store, and then he was able to, borrow money from friends and family to get enough money together to take over a small old IHOP that had closed down, and he reopened it. It actually had a Chinese restaurant in it. It was the old A-frame, like 1960s style, yep. And right next to Wrigley Field. And so he reopened this store, and it turned out he was making after he reopened it, they went 24 hours. It was just in a really great area, and he was making $700,000 or more a year, running this restaurant. And, so he really pushed me into opening up my first store. So I left work with my father, opened up my first restaurant, and lo and behold, out of maybe 1,300 restaurants nationally, we were in the top 40. And so just, super, super profitable, very successful restaurant. And then I parlayed that into more stores.
And so business wise, what did you have to learn, do to get into that?
Well, I think you have to learn how to raise capital, know, so you got to go to friends and family and stuff. I mean, that's where most young entrepreneurs go. You got to go to friends and family and, beg, borrow, whatever, and get your money together to open it up. And fortunately, my first big deal like that was very successful. But what I did learn was that I hated the restaurant business. You know, I don't like being locked into one building, you know, all day kind of thing. I don't like doing anything for protracted periods of time. And so that was probably my biggest learning lesson was I wasn't built mentally to be inside of a building, for 12 hours all day, every day.
And where was the IHOP at?
It was in Ellisville, Missouri. That was my first one. So outside of St. Louis. Beautiful. It's still there today.
And so you had the first one, and then how many did you end up acquiring?
Quite a few. We did quite a few, but some of them were partnerships. But the ones that that I owned myself, I was involved directly in 2 restaurants that I owned.
Okay.
But I was involved in quite a few others that were partnerships and things like that. So.
And were year 2, and were all of them profitable?
Oh, yeah, they're very profitable. But what I realized was after I really came to my senses and said, I hate this business. I just don't like the restaurant business. I had another franchisee who stepped in and bought me out. And when he bought me out, he also took over, purchased the building and the land from me.
Okay.
And so that's where I made a huge chunk of money.
Okay.
Seed capital, really. And so, at 28 years old, I'm a millionaire. I
didn't know that. That's awesome.
And so that's where, my life kind of changed. And I just pivoted completely into real estate after that.
Okay.
Never got back into the restaurant business or, anything of that nature. And just, went after real estate full tilt.
And so what was your first, after you sold that, what niche or what did you get into in real estate?
I was doing everything. I was doing properties where I'd, wholesale them, go in, buy them for a condo for 40 or 50 grand. Remember, this is St. Louis, Missouri. And go in and buy that and then, sell it a couple days later for $65,000 or something and, make a little bit of money, doing that. And then, doing a little bit of fix and flip stuff, buying some small apartment buildings, just all kinds of stuff around, St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, so you're still in your hometown, turf.
Everything I bought was in one zip code in St. Louis, Missouri, and I just in 99, 2000, I just started really piling into it.
Okay,
and I happened to be at my barber shop, the guy that gave me my very first haircut, and state congressman came in. And we started talking. He's telling me about all this money that he's going to have on this appropriations bill that he's trying to get through Congress to fix up the train station in downtown, kind of turn it into like a Thomas Kincaid, cutie train station and get Amtrak going through there and stopping and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, man, that's just such a great story. It really changed downtown. And we got to talking about it. And then after that, I was like, I totally bought into it. And I was like, that's where it's going to happen. Because I happened to be in this little city that was just outside of town, but it was kind of a blue-collar town. A lot like Napa. Okay? So a lot like Napa before Napa had its renaissance.
Yes.
And so I went in and I bought everything I could get my hands on. Bought like a little pizza shop, just the building and the land, not the business. Bought everything, paid no more than $90,000 for each building.
Okay.
And then, a few years later, they got the train thing going. And then we had the run up in real estate prices in 2004 and 5. And so that's when I liquidated everything I owned there. And, I was selling buildings for 900,000, selling for $1 million that I had paid like 80 or 90,000.
Shut up.
So, yeah. And so that's when, so I sold everything, and then, I had a lot of money, and that's when I was like, you know what? I just don't, the problem I think with a lot of small towns, and I consider St. Louis like the largest small town. It's 3 million people, but it's a small town, and it's very, they have a parochial school system there. So it's all these Catholic school systems, and it's really like people never ask when you run into somebody from St. Louis who's another person from St. Louis. They never ask, hey, where'd you go to college or whatever. They always ask what high school you went to.
Okay, why is that?
Because that tells you everything about you.
Okay.
It tells you if you're Catholic. It tells you if you're Jewish. It tells you if you're Gentile. It tells you how much money you have, how much money your family has, etc. So everything is very segregated in St. Louis. And so you can tell a lot about a person just based on where they went to high school.
Okay.
And so you can immediately find out if they're part of your tribe or not. And everyone in this high school would belong to this country club. I had a great-great-grandfather that started a painting company in St. Louis.
Okay.
One of the largest painting companies. They have a lot of relatives that worked there, et cetera. And so the deal was, you get out of college, maybe you screw around for a few years, and then you go and work for the painting company.
Okay.
You join this country club, you marry a girl from over here, and, you have some kids, and, you live in this neighborhood.
Okay.
And I just realized that wasn't for me. So that's when I was like, I'm gonna relocate, Okay. And so I'm gonna move because I wanted to play on a bigger stage, and so that's when I just decided I'm gonna leave. And so I looked, I was married at the time, so my wife, her family is all from New York City, so we looked at Manhattan, really hard, and thought about going there. And then we came out to Napa. I came out on a wine trip with my father,
just out of the blue,
just for fun. Yeah, I just came out. My dad was like, "Hey, you're not doing anything this weekend. You should come to Napa with me." I'm like, I don't know. I'd rather go to Fort Lauderdale or something. But yeah, I want to see my dad and hang out with him. So I came out to Napa.
Okay.
And then I fell in love with it.
Okay.
And just fell in love with the weather and the food, just everything about Napa.
And was this like 2005?
This was early 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. And so. So, I called my wife. I remember calling her and saying, hey, we need to check out Napa. I think this might be where we want to come to.
Okay.
And so by August, that was probably in February, March. And by August, we had purchased a house in Napa at the yacht club. So,
no kidding.
Yeah, and we moved out here. So,
and your whole family's out here now, right? Or your dad moved out here?
My mom and dad are still here. They live in a house. They live in my prior house. I sold it to them down on the river.
Okay.
And so, they live not in the yacht club, but a neighborhood right next to it. And so, they live there. And my brother was out here for about 8 years or so.
Yeah.
He moved back to St. Louis, but yeah. And then, I've got friends out here and stuff that have relocated here from St. Louis. So yeah, it's crazy.
And so what did you get into when you got here? And like business-wise?
Well, I mean, a lot of stuff. So I purchased a real estate brokerage. I just hired a business broker.
Okay.
And I bought a ongoing real estate brokerage called Realty Executives.
Okay.
And so they had 3 locations. They had one in Yountville, Napa, and a second one in Napa.
And did you have your broker's license at this time?
No, I didn't. Yeah, no, it was a broker in place, and it was like I never was going to sell real estate. It was just an investment.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so I did that, and then and I made a bunch of like bad investments too.
Okay.
I opened up an art gallery on the corner of First and Main, and expanded the real estate office, and then of course, bad decisions coupled with a bad economy are never a good mixture.
Yes.
And so, so I lost a lot of money in like 2008 and 9.
Okay.
Really got creamed in the market. And, I had leveraged in. And so it was a good lesson of learning when to use leverage and when not to use leverage.
It's an expensive lesson.
Yeah, expensive lesson. But so then, I after that, I took like maybe another 6 months or a year off, and then decided, gosh, maybe I should get into, doing maybe I'll just be a real estate broker until I figure out what I want to do.
Did you still have the 3 offices?
No, I had sold that or
Okay.
closed them. Yeah, that business was just turned into a total disaster.
Okay. So now what, 2010?
I always say I failed at more things, many, many more things than I've succeeded at. But when I've succeeded, they've always been like, grand slam home runs, and I think that's life. I mean, you try 10 different businesses and usually maybe one, if you're lucky, works out.
Yeah.
Maybe another one kind of breaks even and the other 8 are total losers. And that's been true with, all of my friends. And, it's just, you try 10 things and one's a home run, right?
Yeah.
And so you gotta get out there and get up to bat a lot. And I think that's, probably the biggest part of my personal success is being able to pick myself up, dust myself off, get punched in the face, and then just start over again.
Okay.
And keep starting over again, over and over and over again, because we all make bad choices. It's just, how leveraged in those decisions are you, and how, full throttle are you into what you're doing.
And during all of this personal development, because I see a lot of stuff you put out there, mindset, were you personal development still going to
I always have been. I mean, I've spent over $300,000 on life coaches and seminars and stuff like that. So I'm always doing that stuff and always have been. It's just sometimes it goes in one ear and out the other, right? You pick up one piece of it, but you don't implement it. And, as you get older, you start to get smarter and wiser about things. And, it's just, and I started to realize that, you go through all this stuff, and I became a very successful real estate agent, was never fulfilled doing that, but I was, super, super successful doing that. And then got to a point where my competitive nature started to take over, and I just wanted to be like number one, no matter what.
And so let's back up. So 2010, you decided to get your license?
Yeah. Well, I had my license. I ended up getting my license like all the way back in like 2006. I just never used it.
Gotcha.
And I had a broker's license, but I never used it. And I didn't start, my first full year as a real estate broker or agent, I should say, salesperson, was 2010. I did do some sales in 2009, but 2010 was when I took it on like full time.
And so this is REO city and
right. And so, I kind of analyzed the market and made the decision I need to be a buyer's agent. I don't want to be a listing agent.
Okay.
And so, I just, from, I think it was 2010 through 2005, I was the number one agent in Napa County in unit sales for 5 years in a row.
So 10 to 15.
10 to 15. So
how'd you start? Because I'm super intrigued because I'm in real estate.
Yeah.
So how did, like, that first year, what did you do to get business? What did that look like?
It's just, I think it's like anything else. You got to pour yourself into it. It's a full-time endeavor.
Yes.
I have a great ability to network, and I mean personal networking, not like showing up at like some goofy B&I meeting or something like that, or, some, silly thing where you've got like the yoga lady there and, the lady that bakes cookies and stuff. I mean, that kind of stuff's for the birds, but I mean like real deep level, high level networking.
Okay.
I've always been really good at that. And,
what does that look like? What do you?
Well, I mean, there's the stuff that I think most agents aren't willing to do or can't do.
Okay.
For me, I sacrifice when I go into something. I sacrifice everything is subservient to my business endeavors.
Okay.
So family, children, health, it doesn't matter. Everything for me, a very, very addictive personality in that way. So everything goes to the wayside. And so for me, it was minimum 5 nights a week, dinners with clients. Okay. So dinner, wine, bar, whatever it is, you're working clients.
So you're breaking bread. You're deep. So you're talking network, deep relationship.
Most of my marketing budget was spent at restaurants, bars, things like that, developing really deep relationships with people, going on vacations with people, taking like, 3 clients like to Las Vegas for the weekend.
Okay.
A very common thing that I used to do. And so just really establishing very deep, personal connections with clients,
friendships.
Yeah. And building friendships with that. Right.
Yeah.
And just, so that became my stock and trade. And so these people were absolutely like raving fans of my business. And that's where almost everything came through referral.
Okay.
So it's just, I did very, very little other than maybe sending out postcards once a month to my past clients.
Yeah.
That was really the only true marketing I did. Virtually all of it was events.
And did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it.
So you did what you loved, and
Yeah.
it just worked.
Yeah, it worked for me.
Yes, exactly. You have to,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and so that was my marketing plan, was just to be out there in the community, but in the community with clients.
Yes.
Okay. So, I would go to like the big events, but I would bring, like 10 people with me,
like crab feeds.
Yeah. And
okay.
and there's certain people that you see that are just super, super successful in their field, and they employ that kind of same strategy.
Yeah.
And it's because it's hard to do it with just internet or just postcards or whatever.
Yes.
But there's lenders out there, and actually my lender, and one of the reasons why another reason why I was so successful in that business was I used a lender by the name of Jeremy Forcier.
Oh, yep.
And so he employs that exact same thing to this day.
Yes.
He'll go and he'll get 40 tickets to a baseball game, and take everybody to the baseball game. He'll get like a skybox at Bottle Rock, and take, people to the show at Bottle Rock. He does like a wine dinner at the Bardesano Hotel with like some winemaker, and he invites, 12 past clients. And so him and I, exactly the same wavelength.
Okay.
And so we really operated very, very well together. We would play off each other really well because we were both doing that exact same thing.
Gotcha.
So, so it's partly is having, partnerships with people that are, on the same wavelength as you. And so a lot of that's really how I did it, was just, my picking up the phone, of course, is a big part of it, but I was never a big believer in doing, like the big grand marketing and all that kind of stuff. Now, for some agents that works.
Yes.
They just make zillions of phone calls and go through tons and tons and tons of internet leads, and that's how they do it. Right. And so, you can do that. It's just, that wasn't my style.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, very hard.
And so 2010 to 2015, were you a buyer's agent that whole time?
Basically, I did listings, because they come along, but I never really sought those out. I did the buyer agency thing. And then I realized, listings weren't really exactly what I wanted to do. And so I started a team, and I brought some guys in that I knew, and we were very successful doing that.
Because you grew, I mean,
yeah, we were very successful for years, but the problem is that I'm a hyper competitive person.
Okay,
Matt.
okay.
I'm super competitive, buddy, and so I don't like to lose, and I think that's ultimately has been my downfall. One of the lessons I learned, but back, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I had a deal with B of A, Bank of America. So they had assigned short sales to me to handle short sales, right? These were pre-negotiated short sales. Okay. So it was kind of like a precursor to REO.
Okay.
Like the bank said, hey, we're going to take your house, or you can list it with this guy.
Gotcha.
And stay in it until he sells it.
Gotcha.
So I had that contract, and I got that through the brokerage that I was involved with at the time. And I was real close that year. I was running like head and head with somebody else for transaction value. And I made the decision to lie to a client in order to double in a deal.
Okay.
Not to make money, because it was only like $6,000. And remember, I'm making like over $1 million a year as an agent.
Okay.
So unheard of money,
yes.
In the real estate. I mean, $1.2 million, $1.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but I had a transaction where I was so competitive and so stupid, that, I BS'd a client, and then that client complained to the Department of Real Estate.
So it was your client that complained?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I think, I think it was actually the person that didn't get the house that complained, but my client confirmed that, yes, that's what went down.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Anyway, and I haven't gone back and read the file in many years.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's behind you.
Yeah. But anyway, so I went through this whole process, and they did it like an investigation on me, on that file and all this stuff. And ultimately they wanted to do a hearing, I think they call them administrative hearings or something like that. And I was like, well, and you got to put up money for that, basically, so that the DRE can sue you or whatever.
And you're not in love with real estate as being an agent,
this time
right?
I'd already pivoted kind of out of the business because I was so burned out with it.
Okay.
And so I was starting to do like fix and flip and do more like investing stuff. I wanted to get back into that. And my brother was on my team. And so it was really easy for me just to kind of walk away from the business. And so instead of going through the whole thing and doing the hearing and all that, I just did a surrender on my license.
Gotcha.
So I surrendered my real estate license. I can't even remember what year that was. It was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been a long time. And, I just kind of walked away from it because I wanted to get into, and I was just so fed up with the business.
And what were you burnt out? Like, why?
I think I was burnt out because I was forcing myself to do something I love, which is like the networking and meeting people.
Yeah.
But I was doing it with people that I didn't love.
Okay.
I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was developing friendships and relationships with people simply because of what they could do for me as far as referrals and stuff goes.
Gotcha.
And not all of them. I mean, there's a lot of people that I still talk to.
Yeah.
And I'm still like very good friends with and still have lunch and dinner with and stuff to this day.
Yes.
From that period of my life.
Okay.
But there was a lot of them that I don't keep in touch with, that I did keep closer touch with because they were good referral bases and things like that. And that's going to be true whether you're an insurance guy or a stockbroker or, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just that piece of the business because my marketing side of my business was so reliant on that side of the business. Or I didn't have a pivot into like online leads or something like that. I had to keep that going. And I think that's where there was like a lack of fulfillment there.
Okay.
I got to go spend a weekend with this guy and, it's not really, something I want to do, but I got to go do it.
It was work at that point. It wasn't kind of like networking.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I almost felt like I was like a PR guy for a politician, right? You're going and having the supper with, the reverend and all this kind of stuff only because, those are good lead sources for you or good, in case of a politician, good money.
And when you're making money, like being fulfilled is really important.
Yeah. Well, I thought that maybe being the, number one agent or, I learned early on that money doesn't necessarily make you happy. It accentuates whatever feelings you have inside of you.
Yeah.
It's very important, but it's not, I mean, if you're a happy person, then you're going to be a happy rich person. If you're a miserable fuck, then you're going to be, miserable when you're rich. Mm-hmm. And so it just accentuates, I think. And that's why you see, like, I don't know, singers or, you see, Hollywood types that are generally happy people, but, something happens, they've got all this money and and then they become depressed. And so if you have a lot of money and you can indulge some of your demons that you enjoy playing with, then those demons quickly overtake you and ultimately kill you.
Gotcha.
And so, it's kind of sad. And so I didn't want to end up like that. And I thought that I might.
Okay. Because, at that point, you're making money. So you're chasing the high of being number one.
That's it. Not the money didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, at that point.
I've been rich for a long time. So, I mean,
Your money comes easy.
Yeah, well, it does for me. That's one of those things. I mean, I think everybody's got a thing in life, that works for them. And whether they're like, a great family man or family, woman or whatever, or they're just like, we all have those friends that are like, they've got like the 6-pack abs and they just they always look great. You know what I mean? And you go out to dinner with them and they'll like be, hey dude, let's go run through In-N-Out, and get the animal fries. And I'm like, I gained 4 pounds looking at that, and they're like, ugh, I mean, how does that happen? I don't know, but there's just certain people that, have some kind of gift and they always have that. And it's just like an innate gift and they take it for granted. We all do, but so we have the friends that are like just wickedly intelligent,
And now your grandpa was successful?
No, my grandfather was, my grandfather on my mom's side, inherited a business.
The painting
business. Yeah, they did okay.
How about your dad?
My dad's side, no. I mean, they dirt poor, came from Boonville, Indiana, worked at a
So it wasn't
Chrysler
like
plant.
You saw your family making a ton of money, so you're like, oh, money's easy.
No, it's like one of those things. I mean, you have people that have like innate abilities. You got the person in school that never studies but gets straight A's, right?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
And so I just have some ability that I always make, not just good money. I mean, I always make a ton of money.
Gotcha.
And even when certain businesses don't work, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's like one of those things where I just see the field differently than other people.
Okay.
And so I'm just able to navigate through that and always maintain, or if I lose everything, I'm able to get it back.
Gotcha.
And so it's just the way that I'm wired. Don't
That's
know
awesome.
why that is. And so, but obviously I'm not wired for, having 6-pack abs. I mean, that would be nice, but, I don't have that. So, I'd have to work like, day in and day out, 24 hours a day and have 4 personal trainers. So, yeah.
And so you hand over your license and you're pivoting into fix and flips.
Right.
Is that what you went directly into right after?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing, I was already kind of in that.
So you're buying and flipping as you were selling?
Yeah. And so it's just, it's an investment thing. Buying investment properties, doing, the rentals, the, apartment stuff, the fix and flip, the wholesaling, the Airbnbs, just whatever, it's just any flavor of real estate investing. And that's always just kind of been an interest of mine. And so I love that business, but this is really like where I went off and tried to find my happiness. What is my happy place, And so, in retrospect, the surrendering of my license was probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
That's awesome.
It's just, it's been such an amazing, it forced me to pivot because I see how like some people get caught up in welfare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I see how somebody can be getting a government check for a crappy house, crappy apartment they live in. They're getting food, they're getting a few $100, from the government. And they just keep doing that, right? And so if I'm making over $1 million a year as a real estate agent and I've got a team and it's pretty easy, I think I would have stayed on that track, and it would have been harder to get off of that.
Yeah.
And, I'd always kind of have my hand in it and not embrace like a totally different thing. And so now I have no fear of embracing different things, but I'm glad at the time I wasn't happy that happened.
Yeah.
But now it's like, man, I can't even imagine where my life would be. I don't even know if I'd be alive if I never lost that license. I think in a lot of ways it saved my life because I could have been, I'm not saying I was, but I could have seen myself spiraling into depression and suicide or overspending just to create havoc because it's fun and interesting. I like to have stuff happening in my life. And so I like to live a big life and have interesting things in my life. And so over the past several years, I've really embraced that. I've got a friend of mine who moved here from St. Louis who basically runs, the investment side of the business. And, and I just, and I love real estate, really love it in a lot of different facets, but I need to find myself. And so I've been going through that process and it's been really great.
And with that, what with your partnership, because you brought him out, and what was your role and what was his role and how did that work?
Well, essentially, I bring in financing.
Okay.
So, we have a private equity fund.
Yes.
And so, I raise capital for that.
Okay.
And so, and that's, and so that's what I do, but.
And then he would manage the guys.
Chris runs the show. I mean, he really runs the show.
Okay.
And, he's good at it and I'm blessed to have him in my life. And
he's very meticulous and detailed.
Knows his stuff. And so, but he's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been friends with that guy since 6th grade.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up, we were next door neighbors when we were little kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I trust him implicitly. That's more important than anything else.
Yeah.
I trust him with my life. And so that's the most important thing is I trust him completely. And so that's it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And, I obviously give my opinion on, hey, we should buy this or we shouldn't buy this, or I think we should do this. But, as far as like operations and stuff like that goes, I just defer to him.
So he's operations, you bring in financing.
Yeah. And
back end.
Right. And so, I work with, investors, and kind of guide, more from like air traffic control kind of situation, like, hey, what do you think about this? Or maybe we should pivot into this.
Big picture stuff.
Yeah. And then, but Chris really, I mean, he's the guy that organizes the warehouse and runs the guys and, knows that side of the business. He's just really good at it.
Yes.
And I'm not. Mm-hmm. So we complement each other really well that way.
That's what I was getting at. It's like you two complement each other really well.
Yeah. And we're at a good time in life. That's the important part is I don't want the glory, and I don't want the, you know, responsibility and all that of, you know, like a full-time job.
Yes.
So I mean, I have full-time money, but I don't have a full-time job. I mean, locational freedom is very, very important to me.
Yes.
And so that's what I've kind of built over, you know, or realized, I guess, over the past few years.
Okay.
Is that I really need that in my life. And so, you know, I went out and I've got like whole new set of friends, you know, that I've developed over the past 3 or 4 years. And I travel a lot. I think last year I did 17 trips.
Because you're doing a lot of networking online, social media stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I do a lot of that, and then we bring it offline.
Okay.
You know, so I have, I've got a really killer set of friends, you know, and we get together and we do stuff. I do cigar nights and whiskey nights and stuff like that. We do those around the country, and, you know, I've got, you know, all kinds of really cool friends. It's fun to link up with them and, you know, do business with them too.
Yeah, that's cool. Because I've watched you grow, like your blue chip flips and Facebook group.
Yeah,
I watched you grow that. What's that have? 3,500 people.
I don't even know how many people are in that, but yeah, we do a Blue Chip Lounge. I changed the name of it so that it's more like all kinds of real estate. But that's something, yeah, in on Facebook that we do. I do a private chat group, so I've got 100 people on a private chat group. They pay like an annual thing to be in that.
Okay,
and then they can message me about real estate stuff anytime they want, kind of pick my brain, sort of thing.
Okay,
yeah, and so you know, I do that, and that's a really fun thing. We have that set up on like one of these app programs, you know, where it's like I've got, and I limit it to 100 people. So I have 100 people in there. If somebody leaves, then I'll, you know, let somebody else come in, you know, and it's like $1,000 a year to be in the thing.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I do that. But yeah, I just, you know, I'm out there like, you know, meeting new friends. I like having like a really eclectic group of friends, you know, so I've got friends that are filmmakers. I got a friend of mine that just had the number 2 movie of all time documentary. And I actually did a podcast with him for a year last year.
Okay.
And so he has got the number 2 selling documentary of all time.
Okay.
And so, you know, him and I have become really good friends. And, you know, I've got friends that are like, you know, world champion kickboxers over in Romania. And I went over and stayed at their house for, you know, 12 days last year. And, you know, just, and I try to impart that on my kids too. You know, I think that I want them to live a big life and an interesting life too. I remember telling my son, I was like, we started talking about college like a year and a half ago. I told him, you're not allowed to go to anywhere that's any closer than UNLV. Okay. So you can't go to school like in Oregon. You can't go to school in, you know, California or whatever. I want you to go as far away as possible, and certainly not close enough where you can drive home on the weekends.
Gotcha.
So I want you to go and experience something that's radically different. So I figure like, you know, University of Las Vegas would be great for me because it'd be fun to go visit. But I was like, you know, at least you go there. It's a totally different world than California, right?
The experience, because not only learning, but the experience.
Yeah, and I really want to go out to like East Coast, you know, like Florida or something like that. So my son, you know, he went ahead and applied to Pepperdine anyway, which is, you know, down in Malibu. And then he applies to the American University in Paris and got in there. And then he applied to Franklin University in Switzerland, so in Lugano. And so he is going there. So so I'm really excited for him. You know, I really push my kids. I want them to live a big, exciting life. You can't get mired down in like what's right in front of you. You know, there's a lot more out there.
It's, you know, I live in a little bubble, and trying to get out of my bubble going, man, the world is such a big place.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff out there, and there's so many cool people. I mean, it's just, there's nothing, you know, and I've realized that. I mean, when I took this trip over to Romania last year, and I was over there, and, you know, my buddies over there are like huge on Instagram, you know, 1 million followers, and, you know, like I said, world champion kickboxer guy, and, you know, drives the McLarens and the Lamborghinis and all that stuff. And they've got a huge compound in Bucharest, you know, with like walls around it and multiple houses inside the compound and stuff. And so they're like really big deal over there. Okay. And so went over there and I stayed with those guys. And it was really quite an experience for me. And in a lot of ways, it made me feel sad.
Why's that?
You know, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking at my age, man, why didn't I do this when I was like 21?
Okay.
You know, why didn't I like get out of my world in St. Louis, Missouri, I'm so scared to travel and stuff.
Okay.
Like, what's going to happen? And
Yeah.
like the reality is nothing, other than you're going to have killer experiences.
Yes.
And so it's really hard sometimes to tear ourselves out of that comfort. It goes back to what I was talking about with, being on welfare and stuff, and being like an ultra successful real estate agent and being comfortable with only making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I want to expand that. I want to live like a huge life and a lot of interesting people and interesting experiences in my life. And so that's really what I strive for now. And it's been a radical mind shift for me, but it's elevated my wealth. It's elevated, who I am as a person, the way that I view the world, and, imparting that on my kids, where I have a child now. I mean, never in a million years when I was 18 years old would I have freaking gone to school in Switzerland.
No way.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to have my son now, like, kind of see that and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go do something like just radically different, And so, I'm really excited for him.
What a great opportunity you're giving him, though.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's living like in the mountains above Lake Como. I mean, his school is in Switzerland, but it's a little tiny piece of like a peninsula of Switzerland that sticks down into Italy. And so it's like, a suburb essentially of Milan. And I mean, and he's living in a city called Lugano. It's just incredible.
That's
incredible. So I can't wait to take him over there. I keep joking with him. Man, you and I are going to love that dorm, man. We're going to be hanging out for a couple weeks. Dad's going to be in there. Woo, what's up? So, yeah, I can't wait to take him over there in August and, travel around Europe a little bit.
And so with everything going on, are they still going?
Yeah, I think they're reopened over there.
Yeah,
so
they never shut down, right?
Yeah. And I did see, I mean, just to touch on that a little bit. I mean, yeah, I've been really disappointed with this whole shutdown thing. It's kind of, cramped my style a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah. And so I have not been a big fan of what's been going on. I did go up to the the state capitol, to the protest up there.
I saw your video. You went live on
and
it.
and here I am. I'm still alive. Now, I do feel like I got COVID back in February. I was at an event in Washington, D.C., CPAC convention, and there was quite a few people there that ended up with COVID. And so, I'm pretty sure I had it because I came home and I had all the symptoms and everything. So I self-quarantined for quite some time. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure I had it. I'm waiting for my test results to come back. I got tested last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. And so,
so I'm hoping I had it. That means I got tiger blood, got the antibodies. So
the whole thing was weird.
It is weird.
It's the way it's being played out.
And you're right.
It's very,
it's crazy. Yeah.
And I remember when I first started hearing the WIMSA, and I'm going, what is this? They're, and to me, it's like, this is political. It's election year.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're shutting this place. And then California, and we got shut.
Right.
And I'm going, okay, maybe got to listen to this. So I
was scared too. I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, I was worried. I was really scared for my parents, because they're, getting up to their 70s. And I'm like, man, I don't want them to get it.
Yeah.
I kind of knew from early on, it seemed like young people and people that are in marginally good health are okay. So, again, I don't have the 6-pack abs, but I felt like if I got it, I'd be fine. And it turns out that I made it through it. So, but this whole shutdown thing has been insane. It's driven me nuts because, I had events planned. I had stuff going on. Like I had a cigar event in Las Vegas that was happening that was sold out, and I do like 4 or 5 of those a year with my old podcast host. So we partner up and do those. And those are always like, we put tickets up for sale and, we sell $15,000 in tickets in like an hour and a half. And so, and it's just killer event, killer weekend, I don't know. And so it's just kind of, now I hear that Gavin Newsom was just in Napa Valley having dinner at Mustard's last night and did a little presser from there.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, and
but us minions can't go out.
And we can. No, I mean it's different.
Okay.
Yeah. Come on, you got to accept the realities here.
and so why is that? And what? So you're political science major. Like, what are you seeing? What's happening right now?
Well, I'm at least happy that he said that we're going to go ahead and allow the counties now to make their own decisions. So he relaxed the standards.
Okay.
So I think they're letting everybody slide into phase 3 now.
Okay.
But they have to, jump through certain hoops. But
yes.
It looks like at least on the ground, what I'm hearing is that most of the restaurants will be open partially in Napa this Friday.
Oh, okay.
And so some of them who have been closed this whole time started reopening for carry out.
Okay.
I think in order to recall employees and get, dust off the cobwebs and get things rolling again. So I do think we're going to be open here pretty quickly. But I think my biggest concern with the whole thing is I realized it was political. And I think that was borne out by the most recent HEROES bill, the $3 trillion bill that had $1 trillion in there to bail out pensions. I think that's the biggest issue in states like New York, Illinois, Washington, California, is we have massive unfunded pensions here.
Yes.
Okay. So you've got, you got firemen. And the last thing I heard analysis on this was you need 16 firemen working for each retiree.
No kidding.
So it's a Ponzi scheme, I mean, how do you pay a fireman $250,000 a year in a pension?
I literally just got a phone with a gentleman last week who works for the state, and he goes, yeah, they raised how much they take out to pay for pensions.
Yeah.
Like he's like, they just literally took more money out to pay for the pensions.
Yeah. And so because they have more people retiring.
Yeah.
So then the drag on that, and it's all unfunded. They don't have the money for it. They're just taking from one person and giving it to the other person.
Yeah.
And so it's a massive issue. It's going to come to head. They've already, Newsom said a week ago that he was going to lower salaries 10% across the board for all state employees.
Saw that, yeah.
Okay. And so the next shoe to drop is going to be pensions. Well, Mr. Policeman, well, Mr. Fireman, I know you were getting 200,000 a year, but now you're only going to get 80. That's what's going to happen. It's going to have to happen. So they're going to crack the pensions, and they're using the pandemic to give them political cover to do that. I mean, as a Democrat, you can't go out and just crack, pensions, but they've got to have a reason to do it. And so the further that you can shoot the economy down and make the argument that, hey, we're so much in the hole. I mean, what, $55 billion is what California is in the hole? I mean, how do you get out of that?
You can't.
And we're already, one of the highest tax states.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have the political will to make budget cuts.
Yeah.
God forbid you close a few libraries and fire, stations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the kind of stuff that has to happen. I mean, what happens if, Matt Cole Real Estate, you can't afford to run Facebook ads? I mean, do you just run them anyway? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, who pays for that?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you run $500 a month in Zillow ads and $500 in Facebook ads, and you don't have the money to pay for that next month. Do you just run them anyway?
Yeah. No.
Who do you have a little printing press in your garage and you just make some money?
I wish.
Yeah, but the government does. And
so
so that's what they're doing, and it's not sustainable, and it's not fair to people either, because you're having people that work for you in some kind of state capacity for 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
And then you're going to tell this guy, hey, I know we promised you a pension of $180 a year, but sorry.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to do that now.
Robert Kiyosaki's been pushing this, saying like the pension's going to be.
Yeah, the pensions are a huge issue. And it's one of those things that is not covered a lot in the media because they don't want to talk about it because it's a total unmitigated disaster.
Yes.
But it's going to happen. And eventually somebody's going to have to deal with it because the money's not there.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and like you just said, so they're taking more money out of the checks to pay for the pension, and then they lower their salaries too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and an issue like this gives them cover to do that.
And so in a sense, it's a good thing too, because I remember when I was 20, like people, oh, you should get a government job.
Yeah.
Government jobs, they got good retirement. They have good. Well, now it's eye-opening. Well, maybe a government job isn't so good. Maybe we need less government. Maybe we need more people, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do for retirement, best thing you can do is find a real estate agent like yourself. And this is not like patronizing. I am telling you, it's changed my life.
Yeah. It's
changed the life of people that I know. I have like I said before, I've got a private chat group that people pay either $150 a month or $1,000 a year to be in it. Okay. And so just to work with me and ask me questions about how to set this up.
Yes.
Okay. Basically to mentor them or coach them on how to do this. The best thing that you can do is to buy a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you are fortunate enough to have served in the military and you can buy that with no money down, you know, it's like you can get up to a 1.5 million for a fourplex if you're a VA with no money down.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and they don't even tell these guys this, right? They're in the military. They get out. They don't even, half of them don't even know that there's such a thing as a VA loan.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can buy a fourplex, and let's say you get one and you buy it for $700,000 and each unit rents out for $2,000 a month. You can have that mortgage paid down in like 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
And then maybe you even live in a unit, right? And so you live there for free and you're getting the mortgage paid down. But the thing is then you go out and let's say you're 22 or 23 years old and you did that and now you're 30 and now you're getting $8,000 a month for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Inflation adjusted, right?
Yes.
And so each year you maybe raise the rents 1.5% to keep up with inflation.
Yep.
So for the rest of your life, you're going to have, now, are you going to become wickedly rich off of $7,000 or $8,000 a year? No, but it does give you FU money that if you ever get in a job you don't like, screw it. I got $7 or $8 coming in.
Yep.
Right? My kid wants to go to college. No problem. I can take care of that. I can spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month on that and not even think about it. You know what I mean? So that little tiny pivot can change the entire trajectory of your life.
And now I got into real estate because I was like, I'm gonna buy apartments and do just that. Like I don't know the stock market. I don't know.
Right.
But even me, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
What stops people? Like
I think part of it is that they have a fear of tenants. Okay. And they have the fear of the process. Right. Okay. So a lot of people that I coach in my little group are, you know, these are guys that are in the military. They're guys that are attorneys, but they're attorney. I've got like 3 attorneys in my group who are wickedly smart, probably more intelligent than me, but they're intelligent in what they know, not what they don't know. And so, you know, if you're like a healthcare attorney, you don't know the first thing about buying a triplex, right? Mm-hmm. But somebody like me, I've been doing that for decades, right?
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of them is just, they don't have the knowledge. They like people, we take it naturally because you and I are in real estate, but most people don't even know that before you go out and look at houses, you need to talk to a lender.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but people don't know that.
Yeah.
They're like, what do I do? Well, you know, we need to get you pre-qualified. What's that? You got to talk to a mortgage lender. Who's that?
Yeah.
That's a guy who does loans on houses.
Yeah.
He sells loans. And so you need to talk to him. And, and so there's these steps that you have to go through to do it, figure out what your borrowing power is. And then how do I analyze the property? Yeah. Right. How do I know if a property is, a good deal, not a good deal, et cetera. And so this is like, it's amazing that so much information that we take for granted, but that kind of stuff is like, it's right there. You just have to learn the process, and then just force yourself to do it. It's like going to the gym or anything else. And then, but that changes your entire life,
Forever.
Yeah.
Because you got that, what do they call it? Mailbox money.
Right. And you have that coming in every month. And so, there's just, people that lean into that, when they're younger, and then you have that for the rest of your life. You never have to worry about, am I going to get my Social Security? Am I going to get my pension? Whatever. No, I'm taking care of that myself.
Yeah.
And
so where do you see the opportunity coming with everything that's happening? Like, what are you looking at and what's intriguing you?
Well, I don't try to pigeonhole myself into a certain asset class in real estate. I like to look at the entire playing field. Yeah. What's being hit really hard. So right now, like hotels and Airbnbs are being hit really hard. So can you get a deal there? Really low end stuff is hit really hard right now. Yep. So we're seeing that price erosion in the low end of the market. Because the people that typically the people that are not working right now are in the lower wage jobs. So those kind of properties are languishing. And so, what happens when PPP money runs out? So right now we've got basically the unemployment department has taken their money, given it to the SBA, who then the SBA gives that to an employer it's almost like an unemployment benefit pass through, but it passes through the employer. Yeah. Okay. So, but what happens when that money runs out? It has to be spent by July 31st, right? Yeah. Do those people all get recalled to work? Do they, are they laid off? I mean, and then the other thing is, listen, business has been closed for like 8 weeks or 10 weeks or depending on where you live. Do you really think you're just going to unlock the door at your McDonald's, and all of a sudden everything's back to normal.
It's not going to be. Yeah.
Right. Or your fancy Italian restaurant, in downtown Napa is it going to be completely full, every day, going forward now? No.
There may be a quick boom.
Right.
But then it's going to, I think, taper.
Well, and you've got we got 15% of the state of California is on unemployment.
Yes.
Okay. And then what I haven't been able to find is what percentage of the working population is on PPP right now, which essentially is unemployment.
Yeah. That's
right. Which terminates on July 31st.
Okay.
So my guess would be another 10, 15% of the population. So you effectively have 25, 30% of the entire population of California is on some form of assistance right now.
That's a huge number.
Yeah. And so what happens, when you go a month or two out? It's not good.
And what are you seeing? What do you think's going to...
Well, I think that, the problem with real estate is that you're going to have continuing inventory climbs.
Yep.
Okay. You've got mortgage lenders are tightening FICO score requirements and debt to income ratio. So it's harder to get a loan now than it was in January.
Yep.
Okay. So you eliminate millions of people nationally out of the ability to buy a home. And then you have people that have to sell,
yes.
right? So they have to list their house in this market. And we're already seeing that 25% of all new listings in the month of May are 6.5% less than they were in January.
Yeah.
Okay, price-wise. So that's already baked in. So you got a 6.5% decline in the housing market.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they lift all these restrictions? Do you think all the buyers are just going to automatically come back? Well, of course not, because they don't have, the ability to qualify for a loan if they're on unemployment or PPP. And you take a manufacturing plant that maybe had 200 people, okay, and they're on PPP and they got all 200 people, but they reopen. And are they going to have the same demand that they had, 6 months ago? No, they're not. And so it's going to take a while to spool back up. And part of that process is that, it's a catch-22. You lay people off, and then that drags prices down. And then, those people can't afford to go out to eat. They can't afford to go buy new clothes. They can't afford to buy a new washer and dryer. They've got to, start cost cutting.
And looking at the past decline, 2007 was when it started. 2008 was the financial crash.
Yeah.
And then prices didn't start coming back up until 2010, right? When we started.
Yeah, 10 or 11.
And so it took multiple years, 3 years before it was like,
yeah,
rock
real estate's always a lagging indicator, right?
Okay.
Anything that closes today was originated back in the beginning of April.
Yeah.
Right. So, you think about if you're a realtor, which you are, when you take somebody out to go show them a house, how long is it before you pick up your commission check? It's probably 60 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would say it's like a 90-day cycle.
Yeah. It takes a long time to work through because you got to take them out.
Yeah.
First, you got to say, hey, you're not getting in my car unless you got a pre-qual letter, right?
Yep.
So they get pre-qualled. Okay, great. Now let's go look at houses. So you take them out. They don't like anything. Then you got to take them out the next weekend. They make an offer. It gets rejected. Now you got to start all over again.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
And so, that process, and by the time it actually closes, you're really looking backwards at data.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. So,
and I've been telling buyers, like people calling, what should we? Patience.
Yeah.
Like right now, patience is
right.
Sellers, if they're like, we're thinking we might have to sell. I'm like, get your house on the market today.
Yes.
Immediately, because it's gonna go down. So if you could sell now.
And that's what Chris and I have been saying on our channel since the first day we did it is you're a complete idiot if you need to sell right now and your house isn't on the market.
Yes.
Terrible, terrible advice if somebody's telling you to wait it out as far as selling.
Yes.
You get it on the market because there are people that work for state, maybe they work in a hospital, that they're doing great.
Well, there's still buyers. And so I put 3 houses on the market. One had 4 offers immediately. Mm-hmm. The other 2 very slow showings, and it's like, okay, and maybe it's price, maybe it's unknown territory, but there's going to be so much inventory when they finally do say, okay, we're good to go.
Well, yeah. Remember back in March when you looked at, for me, it's like I look at Zillow or Redfin or whatever, and you see all these houses being withdrawn, canceled.
So
remember
many.
that?
Yeah.
So what? Are these people just going to say, oh, I'm not selling now? No, they're going to put their house back on the market because they think they're brilliant. They can time the market.
Yeah.
And they're all going to come back on the market when, the shelter-in-place orders are lifted.
Yep.
Well, now you're competing against 18 people instead of 2 back then.
Plus, all the people that have been waiting because
Right.
so you have all the inventory that was like, all right, let's
Yes.
wait this out. And all the people are like, well, let's not put your house on the market until.
Right.
And we're going to see that with a declining buyer's market.
And another piece that nobody talks about, and you'll sound like a genius when you tell your clients this, is remember, California has a moratorium on foreclosures right now.
Yes.
Okay. Normally that accounts for about 2 or 3% of the entire volume of homes sold.
Yeah.
And so what happens when they turn that back on and say on August 1st, how many foreclosures do you think are going to be down at the courthouse steps?
Yeah.
All the ones that were normally in foreclosure plus all the new ones.
Yes.
Right. And then, so you're going to have just a furious level of foreclosures being thrown onto the market because they've been pent. It's all this pent up demand, and all of a sudden it's just going to explode.
It's all
time.
still happening. Like
Yeah.
these proceed, like it just
Right.
hasn't been pushed through. And now
Exactly.
we have a balloon, and so we have
Yeah.
all these different things that
Yeah.
are going to get pushed through.
And you think about apartment owners, what about the guy that owns 12 units and he's got 6 people that aren't paying because there's a eviction moratorium as well,
Yep.
right? And so what happens to him? He's got to start selling, right?
Yep.
You got to raise liquidity if you can't afford to pay that mortgage because the bank, they like, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care your people aren't paying, you got to pay. And that's just, commercial money's that way. There is no like moratorium on that.
I think commercial real estate's going to be not apartments, but I think like office space, retail.
All that stuff's going to be hit hard.
Like, yeah. What does that dynamic look like to you? Like,
you take like restaurants, now they're able to say, hey, we're either going to default on our lease and leave, or you can give me 6 months for free and drop my rate down 15 or 20%.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing that from a lot of commercial brokers I talk to, is that leases midterm, say a 7-year lease and they're 2 years in, and now the tenant's coming back and saying, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I'm not paying. So you can either let me stay here for 6 months for free and, recuperate. And once I start paying again, it's going to be at a reduced rate. So now you've taken the value of all those buildings and brought that value down because they're not getting the kind of income that they were getting.
Or we're going to leave and you have to find somebody else to come in.
Yeah, worst case scenario, which is exactly why the landlords are renegotiating leases, is because the last thing you want is if like you own a retail storefront or a restaurant space, the last thing you want to do is trying to go out and find a new dress shop to come in this market, or find a new restaurant, because how many restaurants are going to go under and never reopen? We probably got 4 or 5 that are rumored right now in downtown Napa that'll never reopen after this.
And the dynamics of how they're going to be managed when they open.
Yeah.
Instead of having a capacity of 100, now you're only allowed to have 45 because of new rules or protocols. So,
exactly.
So are you seeing anything like that for restaurants? Or
I think the restaurant space obviously is really, really hard hit. It'll be interesting to see how long they're able to hold the line on these reductions, because in seating capacity, because honestly, who's going to police this?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
if you got every restaurant open, I don't know. You're always going to have your Karens that go in there and, complain about it.
Who is this Karen? Who is this Karen? I saw Chris's post with Karen.
Oh, gosh, so funny. Yeah. So, but you're always going to have these people complaining and stuff. But I don't think once you open that, the Pandora's box, so to speak, and allow places to reopen. Who's going to come into my cigar shop and say, oh, guys, these leather chairs a little too close together here. Tom, you're going to have to move over one. Really.
And what's the energy you're feeling with people? Are more people that you're seeing want things opened up, more people want things shown?
I think it's probably 50-50. I think there's a lot of people that are genuinely scared, that the virus is going to get them. And I think that there's people that are genuinely scared that they're not going to be able to feed their kids and, keep up with their bills, and they want to be open now.
Yeah.
And so, you've got kind of a dueling, just like you do, red state, blue state, you got this dueling thing going on. I think a lot of people are watching, Texas, a lot of people are watching, Atlanta, Georgia, those places are reopened. They got movie theaters and everything's reopened, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens there? Do you have a huge surge in deaths? Or do you just have people that get it and they're asymptomatic and nothing happens, Because you do have countries, you've got Belarus, never closed.
Yeah.
And they had their soccer games and it just went on like normal.
Yeah.
Their president even said, I'd rather die standing than sitting. And so we're not closing. And you got Sweden that did, modified shutdown. You know, they didn't allow gatherings over 400 people, but restaurants and casinos and all that stuff stayed open, you know, and their numbers now have, you know, are better than many other European countries that did close. So
it baffles me how just how this whole thing orchestrated, how much fear was put, how the world shut down.
Yeah.
It was, you know, going through it, it's like, whoa, what's going on? And for me, it was, what I heard at the beginning was our hospitals are going to be overloaded. We're seeing pictures of these makeshift hospitals being built and
I think if everybody was over 70 years old or everybody had a pre-existing condition, we would have hit that. Okay. You know, the problem is that people that look like you and me and, you know, young people and people like my kids' age, you know, they get it. They don't even know they have it. You know, They don't even get the sniffles. Or, you know, somebody like me, you've got it for a couple days. You got the fever. You feel like crap, but you slowly, you know, get better.
Yeah.
And so, but do you die? No. You know, now, yeah, I mean, it is tragic. You do have people that have died from it. So it's not like it's a fake thing. But I do believe that you've got to have certain underlying issues, you know, that really accentuate what that virus does to you.
But the bar kept being moved. That was my thing.
It was flattening the curve,
and so
right?
What was that? Why did that play out?
Well, I think that you have politicians that obviously got a little bit of power and got a little drunk on it. You know, you look at certain states, you know, like Michigan and Maine, where you have, you know, governors there that clearly went overboard.
Michigan,
you know?
That was a trip watching some clips from that lady going, if you're at a friend's house, you're going to jail, or or maybe those Chicago. I don't remember.
No, it was Michigan, and you know, she like outlawed the sale of seeds. I mean, you know, if I want to plant a tomato garden in my backyard, what's that have to do with the pandemic? As a matter of fact, I'd probably like to plant some food if I don't want to go out of my house.
Exactly.
So, just weird, you know, drunk with power kind of stuff.
Okay,
and,
so
you know, but I think you're going to have that. I mean, we see that, right, even in corporate America, and you know, I mean, you just always have your little people.
So there's not a conspiracy to take over, and
I don't think so. No,
in your opinion,
I just don't. I don't see it going. You know, it's not that wild. I think it's more just human nature.
I think human nature as well, and people are people.
Yeah. And, you know, if you want to find an underlying cause of it, it's pensions. You know, they want a scapegoat to be able to, you know, crack pensions, lower what they're paying. And so, you know, this is a great crisis that they can point to and say, it's not me. It's not Gavin Newsom taking away your pension. It's the darn coronavirus taking away your pension.
Gotcha.
Not Gavin, not me.
So the way you think, you're getting all the angles.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, you just follow the money, right? And
follow the money.
Yeah, and so that's what it is. But yeah, so anyway, that's Mike's story, man. And you know, I don't know,
Mike, I appreciate you joining me on the Real Journey podcast, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you.